Today we're going to talk about third man syndrome. I came across this by accident and I thought it was really interesting. I think maybe you'll find it interesting too. Essentially, third man syndrome, also called third man factor, is a phenomenon that occurs in times of distress and crisis. It's the feeling that there's another person or entity there alongside you, even though you're all alone. People report feeling, hearing, or even seeing this third man who acts as a voice of comfort and support in otherwise horrifying time, or literally saves their life. That's interesting. The term third man syndrome comes from the T.S. Eliot poem, The Waste Land. The poem was inspired by the real life experience of Ernest Shackleton, an Irish explorer who went on a near death expedition in Antarctica in 1916. After their ship got trapped in ice, he and two other members of his crew made a 36-hour long trek across the Arctic, over mountains and glaciers, to a whaling station. During that time, several members of his three-man team, Ernest included, kept feeling like there was a fourth man alongside them. T.S. Eliot wrote this stanza inspired by the phenomenon. The poem reads, "Who is the third who walks always beside you? When I count, there are only you and I together. But when I look ahead up the white road, there is always another one walking beside you, gliding, wrapped in a brown mantle, hooded. I do not know whether a man or a woman. But who is that on the other side of you?" Wow. That's incredible. Here's some stories that were published. A lot are anonymous, but they're stories of this syndrome. The first one reads, "When I was young, around 9 years old, I had to have pretty major surgeries for a birth defect. I was feeling sick, in pain, and frustrated about not being able to sleep or get out of bed. When I rang the bell for the night nurses to help me to the toilet, a smiling man dressed in all white would come straight away and help me. He was so happy and peaceful, with the biggest smile on his face and a bright aurora to him. He always came straight to me as soon as the bell rang. The next day, after the second night of his help, I asked another nurse if he would be on duty that night. The staff were very confused. Even after my description of him, she told me there weren't any male staffers on duty those past 2 nights, and that none of the porters or other staff wore all white or would have been answering bells on the ward." Here's another one. "I once fell about 10 feet from a ledge overlooking a lake. The ledge was above large rocks, and as I fell, I was sure I was about to be gravely hurt. Suddenly, I felt a large hand on my back that caught me and pushed me up against the wall. Surprised, I turned around to thank my Savior, and no one was there. I was dangling over the rocks, feeling the hand as it pushed me straight up against the wall until both my feet were secure. I cannot explain what happened that day, but I know there was someone slash something there that saved me. Here's another one. I'm nearly 75 years of age, and I haven't thought of this incident for years. I was raised in North Alabama, the youngest of my 3 brothers. Our family would often vacation in the panhandle of Florida, Gulf Coast near Destin and Panama City. On one occasion, I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. We stopped for a picnic at a park near a backwater, and I was wading and stepped off into the water deeper than I realized. I turned toward the shore and tried to climb back, but knew I was literally over my head in water. Suddenly, I felt hands under my armpits, lifting me up into the shallow water until my feet touched the bottom. I immediately turned to see who was there, thinking it was one of my brothers. But there was no one else in the water. I didn't say anything to anyone at the time, not knowing what to say. To this day, I can't quite grasp what really happened. Anonymous. These stories are amazing. This article is on BuzzFeed, and they list 23 of. They were flooded with these third-person phenomenon stories, and they list 23 of them, and I picked out some of the good ones. They're all really good, but I picked out some of these. Years ago, I was stopped at a toll booth where I had to grab an exit ticket. To reach the ticket, I had to unbuckle my seatbelt. There was a line of cars behind me, so I was going to just go through and put my seatbelt on later. I heard a male voice say, "Put your seatbelt on." My female friend in the car was asleep. I ignored the voice, then heard, "Put your seatbelt on now." I did. Then seconds later, I was clipped by a tractor trailer and flew over the median into the path of oncoming cars. Path of an oncoming car. The car was totaled, but my friend and I survived. I had bruises where the seatbelt kept me in the car and saved my life. If it weren't for that seatbelt, I would have gone through the windshield. Man. Here's another one about a mom. I was alone downstairs watching TV, and my son was asleep upstairs in his crib. I heard a male voice very close by say 2 words, "Go now." Startled, I jumped up, took the stairs 2 at a time to my son's room, where I found he had somehow moved his entire crib. He moved it enough that he could reach his silver metal airplane, put the weighted ball in his mouth, and was silently choking on it. I flipped him over my arm and did the maneuver to expel it. And we both sat on the floor crying in relief. No sound came from the monitor we had. If not for that clear warning, he wouldn't be 37 years old now. Man. Here's another one. When my husband was in his 20s, he fell asleep while driving and crashed into a telephone pole. He was hurt and remembered a teenage kid knocking on his window, telling him he called the police and not to get out of the car because there were live wires everywhere. When my husband was finally rescued, there was no sign of the kid. The police said that no one had called them. The police said no one had called them. They just came because the power was out. Not only that, but they said there was no way anyone could have gotten close to the car on account of the wires. And if my husband had tried to get out of the car, they probably would have probably been killed. My husband so vividly remembers the kid. He believes he was real, but his mom believes it was his guardian angel. This is typed in the people that sent the messages into BuzzFeed, so it's how they wrote it. So it was just like copied and pasted onto the article, so I'm kind of like stumbling. Man, it's incredible. Some of these stories are... There was another one. I thought I saved it. There's another one that's really awesome. A lot of these made me cry because I've experienced a lot of these in my lifetime. Like some of these people, they've experienced this one thing and it kind of changed them, or it's something that they've thought about for the span of their life. But I was just crying reading this because I'm like, some of these have happened to me. Like I've experienced this 3 or 4 times in my life. Some pretty recent ago, just last year. Years ago, I was heading back by train from my parents' house to university. It was late, and I had my head resting on the window with my eyes closed. Suddenly, a voice started telling me to move. It got louder and more urgent, but when I opened my eyes, there was no one yelling at me on the train. The other few passengers were all minding their own business. The voice in my head got louder and louder, more and more urgent. I felt silly moving, but I finally couldn't ignore the voice any longer, so I scooted a seat over and sat upright. Just then, a bullet came through the train window, right where my head had been. I'd have been done for had I stayed where I was. Wow. There's some awesome stories on this, in this article. It's awesome. The world will explain this away as a phenomenon or your brain helping you cope to get through a dangerous situation. But as a Christian, it's pretty clear to us what the Word says. That not only does Jesus look out for us, but He can dispatch angels to help us too, if He wants to. Psalms 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, thy comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Psalms 41:10. Fear not, fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee, yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. It's Isaiah 41. Now Psalms 91:11. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways. Verse 12. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Have you experienced any of these? Have you experienced this third man, phenomenon? I don't even want to say that, but like several times in my life, I've experienced that. I've at 11 riding my bicycle through the apartment complex and having this feeling and just like feeling like if I continued to where I was going, I was going to die. And then turns out, I looked at my little brother. I'm like, I have a bad feeling. I think we should turn around. Turn around, come back later. Don't feel anything. Go through there. Cops everywhere. Two gangs had broke out and had a firefight. Our bikes would have been right in the middle when that happened. Then another time, we're going to the grocery store and there's, in Tucson, Arizona, there's Peter Piper Pizza. And we were going to walk into the arcade and play in the arcade while my parents went shopping. And they told us we could, but then I just got a bad feeling. I feel like we shouldn't go. And I said, Matt, how about we just go with mom and dad and then we'll come back? And they said we could play for 10 minutes when they're done shopping. I feel like we should go with mom and dad. And he said, okay. Come back, walk past Peter Piper Pizza, the glass is all shot up. There was a gang member inside the arcade, and somebody was out in the parking lot with an Uzi, blasted it. Go back to when I'm 3 years old, and we got into a car wreck, and the car flipped 3 times. And Kevin, in the 80s, wasn't in a car seat. I was standing up, and when the car landed after rolling 3 times, my hands are still holding the metal bars of the headrest. How's that possible for a 3-year-old to be that strong while flipping 70-something miles an hour, flipping on the highway? It's not possible. Being burned up, and that accident that I had where me and my 2 brothers caught on fire. Saved that day. The guy that was basically asking me permission last year, a while back, to kill me and steal my car. He was basically asking me permission. And clear as day, a voice told me 3 times, Kevin, leave now. And as I'm disobeying that voice, I feel vexed. My whole body's hot. My body's becoming really warm. And I knew that was a serious situation that I needed to get out of. And that guy did not want me to go. And I couldn't even, his eyes were so dilated, I couldn't even see what color eyes he had. I think he had brown. I've been in these situations. I've experienced this, what the world will call third man phenomenon, or third man syndrome, or third man factor, whatever. We know that he's protecting us. Now, was every single one of those people that posted those stories on BuzzFeed's article, were they saved? We don't know. We have no idea. Does that, well, Kevin, are you saying that every single one of those are Christians? No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they were obviously not meant to die at that moment. And 2, you don't know who's praying for you. Just because you're serving the world and you're not serving God and you're not a believer and you don't believe that Jesus died for you and rose again on the 3rd day and that his blood covered every single sin that you would ever commit, doesn't mean that you don't have somebody in your life that's praying for you. There's people out there who have met somebody one time and proceeded to pray. Why'd you pray for me for 25 years? I have no idea. I only met you that one time. That was 25 years ago. You've been praying for me for 25 years? Yeah. Why? I don't know. God just put you on my mind. Every time I pray, I would remember you. Every time I pray to remember you. That happens. You don't know who's praying for you. You could bump into somebody at Walmart and they could be praying for you for 25 years, 30 years, whatever. I thought that was an interesting article. I came across that by accident on social media, and I thought it was interesting. And immediately I start thinking of the Bible. I start thinking of scriptures. I start thinking about the own things that I've been through in my life and the near-death experiences that I've had in my own life. And now that I'm thinking of it, I don't even know how many times that I've experienced something like that. God's obviously watching out for people. You don't have to be saved for him to protect you from death. But it's probably for a reason. You weren't meant to die then. I don't know what that reason is. Maybe by that, they talked about it and spread it around to a bunch of Christians that they knew that they didn't know that they were Christians, and it inspired a sermon and saved a bunch of people. You have no idea why that person was spared, but they were. We know that from what the Word says, what the Bible says. We know that, some people are protected. And if you're a believer, the enemy could try to throw a lot of stuff at you. But at the end of the day, God succeeds. I love you guys. You can find that article on BuzzFeed, Third Man Syndrome, if you want to read all those stories. There's a lot of comments too. I think there's like 157 comments of people sharing their views on it and some of their stories, and some of those are interesting. But yeah, I love you guys. I hope you found this as interesting as I did. And I'll see you on the next one.